Okay, let's unpack this instrument that really defines raw power and sheer energy in music. The trumpet.
Hmm.
I mean, since the very birth of jazz in New Orleans, this coiled piece of brass has been the absolute centerpiece, just demanding attention.
Well, it had to be. It was necessary for the trumpet to lead. If you look back, the earliest players often used the cornet, which, looks pretty similar,
Right.
but they were the voice of the band because their sound, this great loud sound, could just project over the noise of a crowd, a piano, everything else.
So it wasn't really a choice about subtlety. It was a choice based on pure volume.
Exactly. And that's a great place to start. Today, we want to understand how this simple piece of tubing became, a symbol for musical brilliance.
Right. We're going to break down how it works, look at the legends who played it, and explore what it actually takes physically to master it.
We're really exploring how the physics of, 4.5 feet of metal connect directly to the emotion you hear in the music.
So let's start with the object itself. You just said 4.5 feet. That's the standard length of brass tubing in a modern B-flat trumpet.
Yep,
It's coiled up tightly so you can hold it, but that length is the key to everything.
it is. And the brilliant thing about the modern design is how those three valves just instantly manipulate that length.
Okay, break that down.
When you press a valve down, you're routing the air through an extra little loop of pipe, which makes the total distance the air has to travel longer.
That's so counterintuitive. You're not just pressing a button, you're like changing the instrument's entire geometry in real time.
Precisely. And we know from basic physics that a longer tube creates a lower sound, a shorter tube creates a higher sound. So those three valves, alone or in combination, give you enough different lengths to hit every single note.
But the player's kind of a valve system themselves, aren't they?
How do you mean?
Because they're the ones actually generating the sound, that buzz with their lips into the mouthpiece.
Ah, right. Yes. That vibration is what travels through the instrument and then comes out the bell. The player's technique, their lips, that determines which frequency the horn is going to accept and amplify.
And there's a technical detail here, right? The difference between a trumpet and that older cornet.
There is, yeah. A modern trumpet is mostly a cylindrical bore instrument.
Meaning the tube is the same width for most of its length.
Exactly, until it flares at the very end. The cornet was conical, so it was gradually getting wider the whole time.
And why does that tiny difference matter?
It's everything. The trumpet's cylindrical bore is what gives it that incredibly bright, piercing, forceful tone.
The sound that can cut through a big band.
That's the one. The cornet's conical shape gives it a warmer, softer sound. That's why the trumpet eventually won out in jazz. It just had more punch.
And all that precision. I mean, those valves have to move lightning fast, right?
Oh, for sure. They need constant oiling.
Yeah.
For a jazz player doing a fast solo, any sticking at all is a disaster. It's all about precision.
Okay, so let's move from the mechanics to the movement, to the players themselves. The trumpeter isn't just another member of the band.
No, not at all. They're often the leader of the melody section. They take the tune first. They stand out front for the solos.
And when you talk about revolutionizing that role, you have to start with one person.
Louis Armstrong.
Right.
He didn't just play the trumpet. He basically invented the modern jazz musician. Before him, jazz was mostly a group activity, everyone improvising at the same time.
He shattered that model.
Completely. He shifted the entire focus to the individual solo. He showed that this instrument could tell a deep, emotional story.
And his style was just so powerful. The rhythm, the swing.
And those high notes, soaring, astonishingly high notes that, frankly, hurt to play. But to the audience in the 1920s, that was pure joy and mastery.
But he wasn't the only one. If he was the definition of hot jazz, what was the alternative?
That's a great question, because you had guys like Bix Beiderbecke who offered a fascinating contrast. Where Armstrong was this huge theatrical powerhouse, Beiderbecke was cooler, more reflective, more intellectual. His sound was relaxed, almost introverted.
So even at the very beginning of jazz, you have these two different approaches, the emotional powerhouse and the reflective thinker.
Exactly. And that tension between hot and cool basically set the foundation for all the jazz that came after. Their recordings are still studied like textbooks today.
So once that foundation was there, players realized they needed more tools to express all these emotions. They started developing this incredible toolkit of techniques.
Right. Ways to make the horn sound more human. We can start with the most common one, vibrato.
A little shake in the note.
Yeah, that slight, controlled wobble in the pitch. It adds a warmth, a singing quality.
Then you get into the grittier stuff like the growl.
Mm-hmm. That's where the player is literally making a sound in their throat, like a hum or a growl while they're blowing. It creates this really aggressive, bluesy texture.
What about the glissando? That's the slide, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the beautiful slide from one note to another. Instead of hitting clean steps, you just blur the transition. It sounds almost like pleading.
And then there are mutes. I mean, every professional trumpeter has a whole bag of these things.
Absolutely essential. They're devices you put right into the bell to change the volume and the whole character of the sound.
The most famous has to be the Harman mute.
For sure. It gives you that sharp, thin, almost metallic sound. Miles Davis used it all the time on records like Kind of Blue.
Why that one?
It sounds distant, vulnerable, really intimate. He would even pull the little stem out of the middle to get a specific airy tone.
And the total opposite of that would be the plunger mute.
Which looks exactly like a toilet plunger.
And you just move it in front of the bell.
You move it back and forth, and it creates that classic wah-wah effect. It literally makes the trumpet sound like it's talking. It's pure character.
Then you have others, like the cup mute, which is softer, more mellow.
Right, good for ballads. And straight mutes, which were huge in the big band era to help the trumpets blend in with the saxophones and trombones.
That brings us right to the 1930s and 40s, the big band era, when jazz was literally the most popular music in the world.
It was a huge shift. You went from small combos to these massive orchestras with 4 or 5 trumpets in one section.
And they had to be perfect.
Yeah.
Playing these complex parts all synchronized together.
The physical demands were just immense. And within that section, the lead trumpet player had maybe the hardest job in the whole band.
Hitting the high notes.
Hitting the highest, loudest, most demanding notes over and over again. It took incredible strength.
And band leaders like Duke Ellington, they wrote for those players, right? They used that trumpet section for the big shout moments.
Oh, yeah, that was the climax. That was the fanfare that got everyone up on their feet to dance. The trumpet was the engine of swing.
But jazz never stands still. Just as big bands were at their peak, something new started bubbling up.
Bebop in the 1940s.
It was a total rejection of the dance music.
Completely. Bebop was faster, way more complex, and it was meant for listening, not dancing. It was intellectual.
And the trumpet leader of that movement was Dizzy Gillespie.
The one and only. He was known for incredible speed, playing these really dense, complex scales, and he famously used that trumpet with the bell bent upwards.
At a 45-degree angle. I've always wondered about that.
It was an accident. Someone fell on his horn. But he found that the upward bell helped him hear himself better on a crowded stage, so he just kept it. It became his signature.
A symbol of that nonconformist bebop attitude.
Pretty much. And today, you see young players mixing all of that with hip-hop or electronic music, using foot pedals to add echo or distortion. The innovation just keeps going.
But no matter what you do with electronics, the physical part, that doesn't change. Let's talk directly to you, the listener, about what it takes to even make a sound.
For sure. The very first skill is forming an embouchure.
That's the specific shape of your mouth and lips.
Right. And when you're starting out, the muscles around your mouth get tired almost immediately. It's a real workout.
So students have to practice scales every day just to build up that muscle and finger strength for the fast stuff.
But the real engine, it's not your face, it's your core. You have to use your diaphragm muscles, the ones below your lungs, to push a steady, high-pressure stream of air through that tiny little mouthpiece.
Pros compare it to athletic training.
They do. You need good posture, you need to stay hydrated, and you have to take breaks so your lips don't swell up. The whole game is coordinating that huge power from your breath with the tiny, precise movements of your fingers.
And we've mostly talked about the standard B-flat trumpet, but there are other colors in the trumpet family.
Oh, yeah. The most common one you'll see in jazz is the flugelhorn.
It looks a little chunkier with a wider bell.
And that shape gives it a much softer, darker, almost velvety sound. Players switch to it for slow, intimate ballads.
And you have the tiny piccolo trumpet, which plays an octave higher.
Very bright. And of course the cornet, which we mentioned, with its slightly warmer tone. Each one gives you a totally different mood to work with.
So at the end of the day, when you hear a blistering trumpet solo, whether it's Armstrong or Gillespie or a modern player, the instrument itself is a pretty simple machine.
It is.
The power, the emotion, that all comes from the incredibly demanding physical relationship between the player's body and that coiled piece piece of brass.
That's the whole story. Even with new technology, the basic challenge of mastering your breath and your embouchure is exactly the same as it was 100 years ago in New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's an instrument that demands everything from you, but it gives back pure energy.
Good luck with your studies.